In the court of law, ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as a hate crime.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Justice is a system with two components, a legal one and a moral one. Now, many people make the intuitive fallacy of saying that they're one and the same. The state can legislate and recognize morality, that things like a social credit system are legitimate. The letter of law is not what you think it is. Morality is not what you think it is. And to make my case, go watch my first video on the pantheon of virtue. It'll be well worth your time, and it makes a case for objective morality. But then, is morality really subjective? If the court of law takes all these things into account, your intent in the crime that you commit, well, it only looks at ethicality. Again, a case to discuss in my first video. Go watch it. But let's work from the known to the unknown, right? Legality. The letter of the law. It's what we're most used to. You know, don't speed down the highway. Don't smoke in government buildings. Try not to kill your neighbor. You know, if you can. That last one's kind of hard, but bear with me. I mean, but like, what's the point of these laws? I mean, maybe it's to, make sure that we love everyone as ourselves. To be a good apple, you know, to do the right thing for its own sake, right? No, here's my contention. It's to uphold civility and stability. Here's a test. Justice. What is justice? Well, the ideal justice is the 3 R's, of course. Retribution, restoration, reconciliation. Now, I want you to tell me whether or not the legal law holds up to all these 3. For retribution, how many people are convicted and do unnecessary time because their motives were seen one way or another? The motives that we can't really measure, we're ill-equipped to when people sometimes give false confessions. Sometimes they will just plead the fifth. Sometimes nolo contendere, guys. And how many people serve too much or too little time based on innate qualities? Not like things such as, like, you know, gender and racial identity, right? But the halo effect is very real. Much more real than anything else. Pretty people serve the least amount of time out of all demographics. But in reality, ugly people have it hard in the justice system. So if you're going to be a criminal, make sure that you're hot. Okay, so retribution fails. But what about restoration? Maybe. Okay, people are financially enslaved for like the rest of their lives because divorce. Yeah, that's a fail. Heck, the death sentence, right? You know, maybe someone who murders someone, takes someone from someone else's life, right? Maybe they should be the family's servant or something like that, right? No, actually, they're the death sentence to just take the murderer's life away. Doesn't really restore anything to the family. You know, the family doesn't really get any big benefits besides maybe a bit of peace of mind. Restoration, not doing too hot. What about reconciliation, you know? Maybe that just might pass the test. If 40% of criminals didn't commit crimes again, recidivism is a very real problem in the United States, guys. And unfortunately, 40% of our dudes kind of fail on that one. Okay, case in point, the criminal justice system. Legality in general, well, it doesn't have the means to make better people or to rehabilitate them. The best it can do is protect the good and make sure it restricts the options of the worst among us. So then, if civility and stability are the crux of legality, why would we like not do crime besides to avoid punishment? Like, what makes crime so wrong, really? Well, I mean, they have implications, right? So we obviously must be punishing people for some reason or another. I don't know. I would if, morality. We base our legality in part, mostly informed by moral epistemology. Again, watch the pantheon of virtue, because our ethics are a reflection of our moral compass. are our moral expression. We judge criminals off of their moral expression, their ethics. So then what exactly adjudicates morality? The same way we have the judge for the court of law, we have a moral authority for the moral court of law. A court of law which the conscience is witness. And no, psychopaths are not exempt from this. They are not off the hook. Which I'll probably discuss in part 3. But let's just talk about the normal person, okay? Forget the red herrings, okay? Now, morality enshrines what? Things like the respect for property, the respect for life, and mandates to love your neighbor, does it not? These things are metaphysical backing for what the law ought to be about, correct? And so then it follows that if we in fact have an abstract set of principles we need to uphold and do so on physical grounds for physical acts, that's at least what we should be doing, then it only stands to reason that abstractly, immaterially, what is behind us in our own heads is then dealt with accordingly. Not in the physical plane, but the immaterial one. Well, heck, why do you think karma is so popular with the kids nowadays? I mean, it's not a big surprise. We're so used to consequences for our actions. Though we not necessarily understand its weight and implications, it's something still very intuitive to us. Well, I'm not going to deal with how exactly justice is meted out, right, entirely. I'm going to affirm is that there is, in fact, a moral authority, guys. Remember the ideal of justice? Retribution, restoration, reconciliation. What can a moral authority do about these things? A moral authority has all these abilities to mediate the person in question, to mediate the criminal in question. Problem with karma, ladies and gentlemen, is a system too difficult to grasp for a human, right? It's basically the problems of our own legal system applied to a cosmic scale. One that punishes people. The problem with it is that to the common person, pretty much everyone will cause suffering in life. It is simply us doing bad to one another, which then creates karma, which creates our suffering. Well, no. Because then how do we know what specifically we did wrong? How do we know what we did wrong, guys? There's no explanation. There's no guiding principle. And with that being said, the things that we do, they're not guaranteed to come back to us. That would make the most sense, but it's not what's going on with karma. But the true system of divine justice, ladies and gentlemen, is one where we in fact inform by what we do. We are in fact take on consequences, not just physically, but also mentally and spiritually for the things that we do. Consequences that are the retribution. That what we do, we're kind of met back with. If we harbor hatred and bitterness in our life, then in fact our hearts tend to give out much sooner than the people without that. And perhaps the Christian ideal of hell rings a bell, does it not? And restoration, well, for your suffering in life and for all the difficulties you go through. Are you not also guaranteed a reward by a heavenly master? Or does not hardship actually strengthen you? You are more apt to deal with problems later on, not to make the same mistakes. And when you see the wrongdoings of another, when you take with your better self, you recognize things that they did wrong, and you try to forgive them, move past. Are you now less apt to make the same mistakes that person did that you resent for the things that they did to you when you're finally fully awake? And doesn't this all result in what? The regeneration of man. That a better man may be made by the proper moral decisions that he makes. Whereas the law punishes what? The truth, it empowers. Moral action is something that you are rewarded for and also condemned for according. You live and die by what? Your faith. Your faith is what you live out, and it is how your life will be remembered and lived and died by. And in the day of judgment, if you believe in the Christian ideal, you will answer for what you have done. And of course, with your reward being given accordingly or punishment, when you take the chance to answer to the person that you may have committed cosmic treason against, or great service for, is that not the ultimate in reconciliation, ladies and gentlemen? But of course you're wondering, I can't believe something doesn't exist. How is God a moral authority? Okay, if you're skeptical about that, watch part 3. It'll come out in a week or two. But even then, for the rest of the immaterial arguments, take God out of the equation. These things still hold true, would it not? Well, contest me in the comments below if you say otherwise. I'd love to hear from you. Debate invitations are always welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment, subscribe. I think I'll be tapping out here. And remember, the fulfillment of justice is in moral law. It is in moral authority. That's whose hands it's in. For now, we can try to punish the wrongdoers and see them away from society and attempt to purge it and purify it. But ultimately, the fulfillment of the law, of justice, well, that's not so much possible. The ultimate ideal of justice is something well beyond our human means of not only meting out punishment, but also rewarding people. We cannot do that so much. We do not have the vast infinite wealths to reward those who dedicate their lives to what? Physical impoverishment, if not for a world of spiritual gain. Peace be upon you all, and until the next time, thank you.